show up.
Hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? Welcome
Welcome back.
welcome back to. I get the numbers wrong every time I get on this. I get the numbers wrong. Check-in number
6.
6. Actually, it was 5. I remember the last time. But now the check-in number 6. If you got a chance to look at our series, we were talking last time about checking in with our spouse about sexuality. Just some hints, some
Yes.
pointers. It was a discussion. We were talking about this whole idea in the big picture of checking in. Checking in is a weekly, traditionally weekly, but a regular time where you talk with your husband, with your wife about
How you're
how
doing.
how you're doing. You meaning plural.
You
Not like,
meaning
well, this is how I'm
us.
doing, but right, how the relationship is doing. So it's not just complaining and it's not just planning. It's not a date night. It's literally an hour carved out during the week where we talk through things like, first, praise, where you encourage. You have times where you really get in there with each other. And then we talk about plans for fun things, not just planning for whatever, but the things you want to do.
Valentine's Day is coming. Plan it.
At the planning, and we talked about that, like how that really could come into it as well. And then that third P, after praise and planning, we were talking about this idea of protest. No, practical. Sorry, practicals, where you go into the practicals of the errands, household things you've got to do, the life things you've got to do.
Stuff that makes life work.
And all of this is done with your books, your schedule books open, so that you can put in the practicals of who's doing laundry, what errands,
Who's doing what?
who's doing what. You got to discuss that. In addition to planning for the fun stuff, what restaurant we going to, what movies we're going to see, when is our date night, are we going to double? But then that fourth P is where you protest, where you can complain, meaning you don't put each other down, but it's a chance to really address issues between each other, and you wrap it all up with prayer, which tends to enrich it. And last time we were talking about sexuality and how do you deal with issues and complaints with sexuality, and this led to a discussion.
Yeah, we realized we were talking about that, and then we did some work for somebody else, and we realized in protests, we never really taught about how do we make protests effective and productive, where you actually move forward closer once you've talked about a hot topic.
Once you really talked about how do you move forward after you talked about a hot topic? Yes.
Emotionally closer.
Emotionally closer. And so that's what we want to be able to do today. So buckle in. We're going to do a quick overview.
Yes.
And this is absolutely spiritual and biblical. But I want to give you a brief overview of some things that I learned specifically from Gottman Method Couples Therapy.
Yes.
And it is called the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And it's a great way on how to deal with issues.
Yes.
So, what are the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse? Now, look, we know if you know your Bible, Four Horsemen is in the book of Revelation, and it describes these four horsemen. And basically, you may say, what does that have to do with Gottman and that methods in science?
Well, once the four horsemen show up, doom is
imminent.
near.
Doom is near. That's all you need to know
It's
for now.
gonna happen.
You know nothing
Blowing
about the
up
Bible.
stuff.
And it's funny, and I know it came up because it's the best descriptor of what they've observed, these four behaviors that end up in relationships as they're trying to get through conflict that tend to mess up relationships. The thing that really messes up our ability to handle issues is not the issue. Because bottom line, issues come up all the time in marriages. Sometimes there'll be issues in the bedroom. Sometimes it'll be issues about
In the car.
driving in the car.
How many
There's
times
issues.
you've been in a car and stuff come up?
Issues come up, and they come up suddenly, and they get right in the middle of a relationship. So you look, and then bam, issues are there, and the issues come up, and they kind of get all up in the way of things. And your issue may be you're in the car, and nobody say, what is an issue? When this issue pops up, it'll come up, it'll be I got a little hanger, I gotta have the hanger. When issues come up, there's anger, there'll be frustration, there'll be rage, there'll be maybe some resentment, some
Crying.
definitely be some crying.
And unfortunately, for some Christians, some cussing.
And Christian or not, sometimes language is said, abusive language comes up, but it's all related to trying to solve a problem. It's trying to solve the issue. It's trying to solve the fact that, man, my husband keeps leaving his socks in the living room, or my
wife just doesn't listen.
My wife, she just don't listen. She don't respect me, right? And then the issue come up because she talked to you in front of your friends that way, or the issue come up that
I told the kids one thing, and then you went
and do the other with the kids, and now they're against me, right? Yep. Issue, right? Like, so we have issues. We have to have issues, or we don't have a marriage. But the issue is not what damages the marriage. The issue tends to get the attention, and it needs to.
It's a big orange monster sitting in between the two of you.
But that's not what messes. In fact, issues are not your enemy. Issues are a reminder that you have a real relationship.
Yes.
The key is, how can we get through our issues? We were talking before, if you think of when a great example that I'm talking about, do a good study. Look at Ephesians chapter 4, verses 20 through 32, especially verses 31 and 32, about getting rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, shouting, and slander. Get rid of these things, along with every form of malice. And Paul and our Lord goes into great detail. Yet I like the Gottman because they itemize 4 specific behaviors that you can observe, that if these are in a relationship, you are not going to deal with your issues. In fact, not only are you not going to deal with the issue, but
the issue, you attack each other.
You deal, or attack rather, each other as well. So look, what are those 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that we bring into a relationship? These 4 things that we bring into a relationship to try and deal with issues. Number 1, he cites 4. He calls the first one, he cites, and he sees this in couples, called criticism. So like say, what is criticism? Criticism, simply put, is this. It's when you are criticizing your partner is different than offering a critique or voicing a complaint. The latter 2 are about specific issues, whereas the former is an ad hominem attack. It is an attack on your partner at the core of their character. In effect, you are dismantling their whole being when you criticize. Is that a good summary?
Yes. Criticism, there's the issue, right? Let's say the issue is my husband doesn't take out the garbage. He misses the garbage delivery day because he's sitting and watching TV. He doesn't take it out. So now that's the issue we need to talk about. But instead of talking about that, I attack the husband and say, you're lazy. You don't care nothing about us. What kind of way were you raised? You're not responsible. I'm attacking his very character. We never got to, what's a plan we could put in place to deal with the garbage?
An example that I have here before me, a great example there, reading one. The issue is a little different. The criticism would be something like, you never think about how your behavior is affecting other people. I don't believe you're that forgetful. You're just selfish. You never think of others. You never think of me. Criticism. Complaint would be,
I was scared when you were running late and didn't call me. I thought we had agreed that we would do that for each other.
Same topic, same issue. One is a criticism, an attack on the partner, and the other is a complaint. Get rid of criticism. How? The solution, very simple. Start off gently. Start off with how and what are your needs. What do you want to see happen? What is the thing you want? So for example, using that same example of what we just read, you notice the person starts off with, I was scared. It's emotional, like I was scared. Or you could say, I was saddened, I was frustrated, I was annoyed, I
felt not considered.
I'm not considered. I felt whatever. Be honest with your emotions. They also said, when you didn't call me. In other words, they dealt with the issue. They brought up the circumstances. What was done? I feel very frustrated about leaving the socks on the side of the hamper. Right? That's the issue, leaving the sock. So you bring the issue right back. Bam! You know, I was feeling really frustrated about, and then you'll notice there's a request. The term I've been taught to use, which is very helpful, there's always a reasonable request. If you don't have a request, you're just being critical. Is that fair to say?
Yes. You have to think about, what would you like to happen? You know, often we know what we don't like. I don't like your socks being there. I don't like you taking out the garbage. I don't like you when you have the kids against me. We know what we don't want, but we don't often think about, what is my request? What's the thing that will help me feel better about this? And so you can't be lazy. You gotta really think, next time, could you do da-da-da-da?
Absolutely. Criticism doesn't work. I liken criticism to kind of like taking a sledgehammer to your house to get rid of flies, right? It's too much. But doing what my wife just said, doing what Pam just said, where you have that kind of a vision of how your spouse can shine for you, what they can do, what you're asking, that helps start things off well. How it starts is how it finishes. Is that fair?
That's fair.
So look, understanding criticism doesn't work. What you got to do is you got to be able to have and what they nickname sort of a soft startup to your complaints, and that helps. The second horseman. Let's see how far we get with this. Best way I could describe it is called contempt. When contempt comes in, again, it's still trying to deal with an issue, but now you turn up the volume a little bit because you feel maybe a little. They ain't listening, right? What is contempt? When we communicate in this state, we are truly mean. We treat others with disrespect, mock them with sarcasm, ridicule, call them names, and mimic or use body language such as eye rolling or scoffing. The target of contempt is made to feel despised and worthless. The target of that contempt is made to feel despised and worthless. So in that way, it goes even beyond criticism. How would you put that in your words, Pam?
Contempt is a looking down on. It could be sarcasm. It could be, yeah, genius. Oh yeah, you know everything. It's a demeaning. I want you to feel like you're an idiot and I'm smarter than you.
That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, you're an idiot and I'm smarter than you. It always has that element of I'm better than you are. It comes from resentment. But what happens is we put ourselves on this pedestal and we look down at our spouse, with the same way we look down on a foul-smelling garbage can, and we treat them that way. We come across that way. I hate to say it. I think a lot of times I've seen in marriages, this is the biggest blind spot for couples that are in pain, that they treat each other really bad because the thing is, they feel like the issue is so bad.
Right.
They're like, well, how else do you... What else you want me to do with this?
You know what's hard about contempt too is you're right. Right?
You're right. I'm right about this. Right.
You have like 100 examples you can give for why you treat your spouse this way, but it doesn't work. Hurt people. So if you want healing at some place, you got to stop. You got to stop and say, I have a reason to treat you that way, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be the bigger person.
Yeah, contemptuous behavior has been correlated with increased vulnerability to infectious diseases.
Okay.
It actually affects your body. There is no greater predictor of a marriage ending than contempt. When I see that between a couple, the alert goes off. I'm like, man, if this doesn't get out quick, they're not going to be together long. And I'll be honest with you, you won't. Or you'll just be two people living in an apartment or a house.
So what do I do if I'm feeling contempt? What's the solution?
It kind of first goes right back to that first thing that we said is, one, acknowledge it. What is contempt? Contempt is you have a deep hurt and resentment about an issue. We got to keep the focus back on the issue and the request, and let's start dealing with that. And anything that deals with that is going to be able to help. The challenge is, you may say, well, still not dealing with it. How you treat the other person is the issue.
It's always
using sarcasm. That's the problem. Not your hurt. Your hurt is your hurt. You're gonna finally get a job, huh, genius? I guess we'll just be living in Beverly Hills when you find that is not dealing with an issue. That's making your husband and wife feel like manure. I'll put it that way, right? Don't use sarcasm. Don't use abusive language. As we like to say, calling us. A lot of couples, when they're triggered, literally curse at their spouses the way a New Yorker would curse at somebody dissing them on a subway. And that's crazy to do that. You can absolutely control that. A lot of couples, but here's the thing, usually sometimes because we feel the hurt is so bad, we feel like it's justified.
We have to ratchet up.
We got to ratchet up. It's exactly what Paul said when he said, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, shouting, and slander. We feel it works and it's appropriate. Yet we follow, and this is for those of us who are believers, we follow a Lord who teaches, literally turn the other cheek even on your enemy. So
do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth.
We've got to be able to accept, but practically you can't give yourself the, to be honest, we can't give ourselves the justification and say, well.
Can't let yourself off the hook.
You can't let ourselves off the hook. Solution, learn to express your feelings and needs. What are they? And I'm going to say this too. It goes with the other horsemen that can build contempt as well. Then in comes galloping in the third horseman we want to talk about, and that is
defensiveness.
What? Why you say that? Defensiveness, right? It came out in me just now. An issue come up. You're critical. Maybe you're contemptuous. But sometimes, even if you are the most gentle, falling snowflake, falling on a pedal, sometimes we as men especially, but again, it's not a gender thing. We especially can be defensive. What is defensiveness? The third horseman is defensiveness, and is typically a response to criticism when we've all been defensive. And this horseman is nearly omnipresent when relationships are on the rocks. When we feel unjustly accused, we fish for excuses and play the innocent victim so that our partner will back off.
Unfortunately, this strategy is almost never successful. Our excuses just tell our partner that we don't take their concerns seriously and that we won't take responsibility for our mistakes.
Quick snapshot.
Did you call Betty and Ralph to let them know that we're not coming tonight as you promised this morning?
Look, I was just too darn busy this day. Look, as a matter of fact, I got a busy schedule. Why didn't you just do it? You could have just called. You had time. That was a classic example of a defensiveness. We noticed I took no responsibility. I didn't apologize. I felt the rise because I felt a little guilt, little like, oh, she's on me again. But my strategy was to kind of push back and to come up with some excuse, some reason. The only catch with defensiveness, it just tends to make the other person angrier. If they're contemptuous, they're going to look more down on you because now they're going to be feeling like,
you don't even take responsibility for what you got to take responsibility for. See, look at you.
Right.
Look at you.
Defensiveness doesn't work. Usually what happens is, I've seen it where a lot of times people feel justified in being abusive with their language or contemptuous because they feel like because they won't listen to me otherwise. They won't listen. The thing you got to realize is it's not helping either, right? But the other person's got to realize, to be fair, I don't care how critical your wife is or your husband is, defensiveness doesn't work. Take responsibility. Is that a good summary anymore?
Yeah, it's the idea that you always got something to say. You always got an excuse. You always got something to say instead of just saying, you're right, or I was wrong, or I could have done that better. It's just that will end the whole conversation. But instead, you just justifying.
Justifying. Defensiveness doesn't work. Take responsibility. Say something like, Man, I forgot. I'm sorry. I blew it. Next time, in fact, I'll call right after we finish.
You say a lot of times you're right.
You're right.
You're
Just
right.
saying you're right. Well, that she wrong. Let's say she's wrong.
Totally wrong.
I don't care if somebody is wrong. No one's 900% wrong. There's something that you could take away.
Find that one little
There's
thing.
one thing. There's a reasonable request in that. You find. Let's say you say, but I did call, and find the 1% says, you know what? I'm sorry. I called, but I didn't tell you. Find the 1%. Figure out. Take responsibility. You'll just notice by not being defensive, you will calm the situation down. I remember one time a couple that I knew, the wife had this habit, and it doesn't look like defensiveness. Every time they talked about their sex life and the husband had a complaint, it wasn't happening, she would start crying. She would just start getting tearful. And it wasn't because of some trauma in her past life. It was because she didn't like to be challenged and she was embarrassed. So she would just start crying, and then he would back off. Why doesn't that work?
But it's manipulative.
And it's
manipulative.
Right. So it looks like, oh, she's so sensitive. No, she's being very defensive and not taking responsibility. The fourth horseman gallops in. No, actually, pretty fast. It's called stonewalling, and this has been in research. Actually, men tend to be more stonewallers, but even in our own marriage, it can flip. And right, is that a
I'm
fair?
the stonewaller.
What is stonewalling? The fourth horseman is stonewalling, which is usually a response to contempt. Stonewalling occurs when the listener withdraws from the interaction, shuts down, and simply stops responding to their partner. Rather than confronting the issues with their partner, people who stonewall can make evasive maneuvers such as tuning out, turning away, acting busy, or engaging in obsessive or distracting behaviors. Quick demonstration of stonewalling. The issue is there, and my wife is going to try and get me to pay attention and deal with this issue. Ready? Go.
Antoine, honey, listen. I said it before. Why you not listening? Hello? Antoine, we've been talking about this over and over again, and why you not giving no response? Why you not? See, that's what I'm saying.
Or it may look like something like this. One more time.
Antoine, hon.
Hey, did we check? We need to go to the mechanic. We need to go to the mechanic. I gotta go.
That's not what we're talking about. Get back here. Now.
That's the best. And look, and now she's left with what? She's left holding the issue, right? But it's not dealt with, and I'm gone. That is stonewalling. Stonewalling is basically when one person just shuts down, gets silent, stops talking. They sort of go into their own head. They may leave the conversation in an abrupt manner, but usually it's because they're so frustrated that's the only thing they know to do is just to do, like, it's like a button on the back of your head. So they're not calm. I remember when I would see couples in person, I would actually put pulse oximeters on their finger, and I'd watch how they argue and watch their heart rate.
Right.
When you would see somebody when they were flustered, their heart rate would be like at 110 beats per minute, but they'd be sitting like this. But they'd be mad. So they just shut down. That's why they stopped. They figure, man, and they'll eventually stop talking if I just keep quiet. But it just doesn't work. Is that a good summary?
It's something called flooding. I know for me, inside, I feel like I have two reactions, right? So in the beginning, I would go crazy, just say whatever, interrupt the conversation, be rude, contemptuous, right? But now I don't want to be that way. So now I feel like stonewalling is an internal. Everything is inside, and I'm just shutting out so that I don't outburst and go crazy. But I'm not engaging in the conversation.
Go on. And that leaves the other person now, as you saw, stuck with the issue, but also feeling abandoned.
Right. Yeah.
But this is different. A great solution to stonewalling is one, realizing that you're flooded. It's too much. And you can say affectionately, look, hon, you know what? Right now I need a pause. I'll come back to this. And you give yourself at least 20 minutes to come back to it. But you got to come back. But you respectfully let them know I need a break. And please don't let the other person get a break. I tend to overwhelm Pam in arguments when I'm on a tirade, right? I go on these issues, right? So I know I've got to give her space. And she knows that she's got to eventually come back and have the conversation when she's ready, not 3 months later, but really be able to have it. But give yourself at least 20 minutes.
A good 20 minutes.
A good 20 minutes to get our heart rates down, to get the stuff out of our body, so to speak, and get into a better state. But stonewalling, I get it. It's understandable. It could seem just like defensiveness, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
They just don't work.
It doesn't open the way for communication.
The worst thing about the Four Horsemen is the issue ends up still there, and it's like still right there between all of you guys, and it fills the whole marriage, and you guys are attacking each other, and the issue is unscathed.
Unscathed.
The issue is looking good, the issue is fine. The issue is having a soda, sitting watching TV, eating chips, and you're.
This is a good movie.
Meanwhile, you guys are destroying each other. Again, with these Four Horsemen, they predict relationship collapse. Use the solutions.
Yes.
Keep yourself calm, which means take a pause. Don't allow defensiveness to sort of reign. Be able to take responsibility. Rather than give into contempt, hold yourself accountable. Don't become an abusive spouse. Sarcasm is abusive. Looking down on your spouse and letting that show that way is abusive. And absolutely start off gently. Start off soft. Have a request. I feel like if anything I've noticed makes a difference is having a request. If anything I notice really causes problems is when you won't respond to your wife's request or your husband's request.
Right.
You just keep doing the same thing without responding. That just kind of keeps the Four Horsemen around because the person now feels they've got to amp it up.
Right.
Is that a good way of saying it?
That's very good. That's really good.
So guys, thank you. And
it is possible to have a disagreement or an issue and talk it through, resolve it through, and come closer emotionally and intimately.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us in our check.
Thank you for joining us.
Find more of our videos on our YouTube channel, Mind Change. Let us know what you think. Add comments, ask questions, give suggestions for future topics. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.